Good morning, 8th grade. Today we're going to be focusing on progress reports 12 and 13 from Flowers for Algernon. This video is going to focus on progress report 12. So in your packet under Tuesday, October 27th, you have a chart that you're going to be using to track Charlie's change in character in progress report 12 and then for the next video in progress report 13. So before we get started reading progress report 12, I want to point out that at the top of the chart it says looking ahead. And this prompt at the top is the prompt that you're going to be answering on Friday for your writing assignment. So it's really important that throughout the week you're thinking about this prompt and using all of these worksheets to build to answering that question as fully as you can on Friday. So our prompt is, in Flowers for Algernon, Keyes is making a significant statement on the value of intelligence in our society. Based on Charlie's changes throughout the story, what theme is Keyes developing? So I'm going to underline changes throughout the story as well as theme, because those are the two most important parts of the prompt, and today we're going to be focusing on changes. So we're going to use this organizer to track how Charlie changes. I'm going to do one with you, but by the time the video is over, you need to have filled in the other two changes as well as evidence. And then while I'm reading, I'm also going to ask that you are annotating your text along with me. So please turn to Progress Report 12 in your Flowers for Algernon text. April 30th. I've quit my job with Donegan's Plastic Box Company. Mr. Donegan insisted that it would be better for all concerned if I left. What did I do to make me hate them so? The first I knew of it was when Mr. Donegan showed me the petition. 840 names. Everyone connected with the factory except Fanny Gurdon. Scanning the list quickly, I saw at once that hers was the only missing name. All the rest demanded that I be fired. Joe Carp and Frank Riley wouldn't talk to me about it. No one else would either, except Fanny. She was one of the few people I'd known who set her mind to something and believed it no matter what the rest of the world proved, said, or did. And Fanny did not believe that I should have been fired. She had been against the petition on principle, and despite the pressure and threats, she'd held out. I'm going to put a comment here on the side. Go ahead and write a comment in with me. That is going to talk about how even though Charlie is smarter, he is still alone. And what I'm thinking there is that at the beginning of the text, he kind of thought all the time that if he just became smarter, became more like Joe Carp, more like Frank Riley, they would be his friends. But we're finding out pretty quickly that he's actually become something that they're afraid of, or somebody that's almost too smart to actually fit in. Continuing our text. Which don't mean to say, she remarked, that I don't think there's something mighty strange about you, Charlie. Them changes? I don't know. You used to be a good, dependable, ordinary man. Not too bright, maybe, but honest. Who knows what you done to yourself to get so smart all of a sudden? Like everybody around here's been saying, Charlie, it's not right. But how can you say that, Fanny? What's wrong with a man becoming intelligent and wanting to acquire knowledge and understanding of the world around him? She stared down at her work, and I turned to leave. Without looking at me, she said, it was evil when Eve listened to the snake and ate from the tree of knowledge. It was evil when she saw that she was naked. If not for that, none of us would ever have to grow old and sick and die. Once again now I have the feeling of shame burning inside me. This intelligence has driven a wedge between me and all the people I once knew and loved. Before, they laughed at me and despised me for my ignorance and dullness. Now, they hate me for my knowledge and understanding. What in God's name do they want of me? They've driven me out of the factory. Now, I'm more alone than ever before. This is what I'm going to use for the first box of Charlie's change. And so what I'm going to say is that a big change in Charlie is that Charlie was once ignored for his lack of intelligence, but now he is despised, which means hated, because of his superior intelligence. And what I'm going to note on that too is that Charlie still feels shame, but in a more intense way. So remember before, Charlie wasn't really able to feel shame the way that he was supposed to when people were making fun of him or using him. But now he's definitely feeling that shame because of being different from other people, but in a more intense way. And what I'm going to write down is they've driven me out of the factory. Now I'm more alone than ever before as my evidence. Because I think it's important to note that he's acknowledging that he's very alone in a way that he was not able to before. He didn't realize how alone he was. Continuing to our text, May 15th. Dr. Strauss is very angry at me for not having written any progress reports in 2 weeks. He's justified because the lab is now paying me a regular salary. I told him I was too busy thinking and reading. When I pointed out that writing was such a slow process that it made me impatient with my poor handwriting, he suggested that I learn to type. It's much easier to write now because I can type nearly 75 words a minute. Dr. Strauss continually reminds me of the need to speak and write simply so that people will be able to understand me. I'm going to put a comment in there because earlier it was hard to understand Charlie because of how limited his writing was, and now it's hard to understand him because of how intelligent he is. Whereas before, you really couldn't understand him all the time because he didn't really use proper English. I'll try to review all the things that happened to me during the last 2 weeks. Algernon and I were presented to the American Psychological Association sitting in convention with the World Psychological Association last Tuesday. We created quite a sensation. Dr. Nemour and Dr. Strauss were proud of us. I suspect that Dr. Nemour, who is 60, 10 years older than Dr. Strauss, finds it necessary to see tangible results of his work. Undoubtedly, the result of pressure by Mrs. Nemour. Contrary to my earlier impressions of him, I realize that Dr. Nemour is not at all a genius. He has a very good mind, but it struggles under the specter of self-doubt. He wants people to take him for a genius. Therefore, it is important for him to feel that his work is accepted by the world. I believe that Dr. Nemour was afraid of further delay because he worried that someone else might make a discovery along these lines and take the credit from him. Dr. Strauss, on the other hand, might be called a genius, although I feel that his areas of knowledge are too limited. He was educated in the tradition of narrow specialization. The broader aspects of background were neglected far more than necessary, even for a neurosurgeon. I'm going to just put on the side some of the words that I'm seeing Charlie use that are definitely really big vocabulary words that he would not have known before. Things like contrary, specter, things like specialization. If you want to add to any of these to show some other words that you see Charlie using that are really showing his intelligence, go ahead and add that in your annotations. I was shocked to learn that the only ancient languages he could read were Latin, Greek, and Hebrew, and that he knows almost nothing of mathematics, beyond the elementary levels of the calculus of variations. When he admitted this to me, I found myself most annoyed. It was as if he had hidden this part of himself in order to deceive me, pretending, as do many people I've discovered, to be what he is not. No one I've ever known is what he appears to be on the surface. Dr. Nemour appears to be uncomfortable around me. Sometimes when I try to talk to him, he just looks at me strangely and turns away. I was angry at first when Dr.